Hi, I'm Jan Ozer. I'm chatting today with Tobias Queisser, co-founder and CEO at Cinelytic. Cinelytic's platform uses AI to analyze movie data like genres and actors to predict future movie performance. This helps its customers evaluate and predict movies' financial performance and make informed decisions about investments, casting, and distribution strategies. We'll discuss the platform's functions, how it works, and its potential application to video advertisements. Cinelytics also recently released a tool called Callaia that can quickly and affordably create script coverage or analysis. We'll discuss that as well. Thanks for joining me, Tobias.
Hi, thanks for having me. Nice to meet you.
My pleasure. So tell us about Cinelytics, the platform.
Cinelytic is the leading AI-driven content intelligence platform. And by that, with Cinelytic, we help major studios as well as independent film companies make faster and smarter decisions. So it's really built to support anything around predicting film performance, aiding with the analysis workflow, and we always say future-proof our clients of really helping them make creatively amazing content, but also content that makes economic sense and helps them to be economically successful.
So what are the inputs into the analysis?
So Cinelytic itself is a broader platform. We have four major tools. We have the talent analysis tool, because talent is still one of the main drivers, of course, whether director, actor, producer, writer of film. And then there's a comms tool where, traditionally that's a traditional method. We just make the traditional method of analyzing film is running comms. You can do that. It's just a bit more now more detailed, and nice visualizations make it more valuable. And then the AI-driven model, which is the third tool that we have in the suite of tools, is really a predictive tool that's based on our proprietary machine learning AI that we developed. And it doesn't work like comms at all, or aggression, because that's linear. What it does is it allows the user to import or input the 19 main variables of a film project, right? And we looked at 50 variables that exist early stage, let's say script stage or development stage, and really reduce it to 19 and actually move the needle. These 19 inputs are predictive, and that means they can impact performance in the end when it's released. And these inputs are genre, budget, prequel, sequel, whether it's based on an IP, whether it's a franchise, which franchise, themes, keywords, but especially, of course, the talent involved, the actor, writer, director, producer, as well as release size and timing. And so all you do is, as the user, is you input these factors, takes you 2 minutes, then you press forecast. The AI then understands what film it is based on these inputs, and then runs it against all our data that we have. And we ingest box office, home video, TV data, streaming data, social media. So we have any data that exists is ingested in Cinelytic. And that AI model that I just mentioned, the predictive model, is basically using that data to then provide a risk-weighted forecast, and we do then forecast box office, home video, and TV revenues, domestic and international. So this is kind of the heart of Cinelytic, I would say, because it is a real-time tool that allows you to run real-time forecasts, scenarios, release distribution scenarios as early as script stage. And this is really, I think, the benefit that now you have an accurate, or as accurate as possible, understanding of the economic value of your content early on, but also the workflow is it's in seconds. You can iterate, right? You don't have to spend and bottlenecked, you don't have to spend a lot of time on the analysis, and these bottlenecks that exist, especially in studios, running analysis is gone. It's literally the process now is getting a group of people together or doing it alone and iterating on that project and forecasting different scenarios and then deciding how you can optimize. And that's the main benefit of Cinelytic.
I mean, that sounds very much top of pyramid in terms of script or movie type availability, where you're looking at genres and IP. What about, I mean, that's, the top 1%, or what's your sense of how it works with, films that are below that? Or TV shows that are just new, that don't have a lot of the established factors that really do contribute to revenue projections.
It works the same well for both. I mean, we work with major studios. We also work with single production companies that do $1, $2, $3 million films. And the reason is because it's just whether you put an A-list actor in there or you put a newer, younger actor in there that hasn't as much of a body of work, that is just also forecasting, creating a different forecast. Of course, it's not creating $100 million revenue return, but it might be 500,000 or a million. But that's as important, even more important on that end of the market, is they don't have access to that kind of analytics because they normally can't afford the data. They don't have the knowledge of how to run that kind of data. And so on that end, it's really a tool that helps with an objective opinion, because oftentimes, especially smaller films have a producer thinks of large comms, right? When they think of the film, it's like my $2 million romantic comedy. The comms are Titanic and Love Actually, and then we're like, not really. And then by using the system, they can really understand where they sit, and they can understand, okay, this is probably my release strategy. If I go theatrical, 50 theaters, these are the distributors that I should go after, or should I bring it straight to VOD or potentially sell it to a streamer? And so you can really hone in on a realistic business case for any size of film. So whether it's a small film or a large film, it works for both ends of the market.
Okay. Where'd you get the data to train on, and what data did you train the models on?
So that was the initial start, right? When we started the company, we went around town and really looked at all the various data sets that exist. And unfortunately, we had to license most of it. So we have very high data costs. And what we do is we basically license our box office, home video, TV data. We have our own source for streaming data. We have APIs for social data and metadata. And so we have probably 8-9 different data sources that we either have a license agreement with or that we developed ourselves that flow onto the platform. And once it's on the platform, then they're being used for these various tools that then are kind of workflow tools that use AI to take the data and create insights. Because a very important point to make is we're not a data provider, we're not a data platform. We call ourselves an insights platform. So what you see what the results that you see on the platform are directly actionable insights that already have been calculated and based on the data that we ingest in the system.
So your background was actually pretty interesting as it relates to your ability to create tools for filmmakers. Why don't you go into that a little bit and also talk about some of the other staff you have that does have a lot of filmmaking experience as well as the obvious technical capabilities that your staff has?
Yeah, I think one point to make about Cinelytic is that we're film industry insiders. So a lot of our team members have extensive experience as studio executives or producers. So we are insiders for the film industry. And this is how we started Cinelytic as well, as we base it on our needs. And I mean, a little bit of my background, I used to be, when I was a young kid, I used to love making films, but then ended up with a business degree and was in finance for 10 years. Merger acquisitions and fund management. I was able to exit and then became a producer a couple of years. And really, in that phase, I realized that with the advancements in data collection and the advancements in machine learning, there is the potential to build a new tool for the entertainment industry that exists in other industries. I used tools in other industries when I was in finance to aid my job, and I saw that same purpose for the entertainment industries. And by coincidence, found my co-founding partner, Dev, who is a rocket scientist at NASA. He worked for NASA building risk assessment systems for launch vehicles. So, the analogy is like, it's a very complex problem, of course, that he built a system around that anybody that is maybe not a PhD in physics or math can understand and use to predict spacecraft design. And that's kind of the analogy with Cinelytic. What we build is basically a tool that we collect all the data and we run all these complicated analytics on the back end, but then the front end for our users is for any everyday film professional, executive, maker to easily run. So the front end is very easy to understand. And because we're industry insiders, we only build tools where we really see a meaningful improvement of what's currently being done. And that means with Cinelytic, we started machine learning predictive forecasting. We saw this is going to be a multiple better way of forecasting performance than what's currently done, and hence that's how we launched Cinelytic. And now I think you alluded to it. We are launched as a new tool that's a script coverage analysis tool. And with this one, we really waited a while because we always wanted to do it, but technology wasn't ready. We built a couple of test cases, and it's just never convinced us that this is really that improvement that is necessary to make it a successful tool. And only so for 5 years we were waiting and testing, and then only last year, a year ago, when LLMs made such an amazing leap in we were able, and we discussed internally, we said now is probably time to build something. So we started building Callaia a year ago. We tested it extensively with 100 plus companies and launched it last week. And it's different from Cinelytic because this is our first. In Cinelytic, it's a bit more enterprise solution. Callaia is really for everyone. It's $79 to run a script and get a 30-page coverage. We call it Coverage Plus script analysis that takes around 60 seconds, right? And so this is the new tool that we launched, and we have never had such positive feedback in the beta phase, and it launched very well. So we're very happy with.
Let's focusing on Cinelytic. Are there any stories you can tell us about which films you looked at before they were released, and hits and misses? Or
generally when we talk to our clients, because of the privacy, the importance of privacy on new projects, the system is heavily encrypted, and data security and privacy is one of the key drivers when we build the platform. And so we don't know what our users are doing. So what we build is a system that our users we train them how to use it, and then however they use it, we don't have insight into it. So we don't know what specific films were ran, but what we do is, in order to market the platform, we do run on a regular basis. We put a blog out, and we constantly run and predict projects, and then we publish it. Right? We publish it. Sometimes it gets published in Variety, FT. So I can talk about a few of these cases where overall the accuracy of the platform is 85% plus. Most of the big films we're in the 90% plus accuracy of our forecast, so it's very highly accurate. But it has to be said that it doesn't forecast outliers. It does not forecast like a super hit or super flop. It gives you the most probable outcome. But the most important is it guides you in the right direction when you make that decision of, should I finance it? What's the budget size? Or should I acquire it, right? That's kind of the key decision. And then in distribution, we are being used at distribution as well. And then you can always iterate different scenarios. But the base case that we predict is always directional, and it's very accurate, but outliers are outliers. But I can give you an example. I mean, that's public. Because I think it was a year ago, I was interviewed by The Economist for like a docuseries, and they asked, so Barbie was around the corner, right? And I was like, yeah, of course I can run Barbie, and we ran Barbie, and it did give a very positive result in the documentary. So it was definitely saying this is a fantastic green light, let's go. But it was also a year before release. Wow. So this was a couple of months. I can't remember. Yeah, it was a bit of a while before release. So we didn't know, maybe a couple of months before release at that point. So we didn't know about of course, I didn't work for the studio that made the film, so I didn't know what fantastic film it ended up being. But based on our predicted forecast, go. Of course, film came out, became a global cultural phenomenon. It made over $1 billion. And then I look back at then the documentary aired 6 months later, and it looks like, oh my God, we were off. Our accuracy is like 40% because it was more. It was probably 70%. But the reason was because, of course, this was an outlier. This was one of the few times in a year, which is the 1%er or less than that something is going, very big, and it's beautiful because the important part is you cannot build a business just betting on outliers, right? The important part is you have to make your film, your studio, your film, your slate. You have to base it on the basic outcome, and so when they came back to me a half a year later. And I told them, listen, this is actually a very good example because the analysis was very positive. You would have greenlit that film, you would have made it into a big film, and it performed even better than expected. So you have a huge profit on your hands, and that's a fantastic way of showing how, in one hand, while it didn't predict exactly that it made whatever, I don't know how much money it made domestically and internationally in my head, but it did guide in the right direction. So in the end, while the accuracy was probably not great on that film because it was an outlier, it still gave the right decision, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so tell us, you put out a report called Big Spending, Big Returns, and you looked at TV budgets as compared to TV returns. Why do you put that out? And who reads it, who benefits from it, and what were your major findings from this report?
So we generally, every month, we publish a blog to showcase some of the data insights that we can provide on the platform for marketing purposes and also in informational purposes. And that particular report, so sometimes we forecast like box office, like summer box office hits, and in this case, we looked at the streaming landscape, and just to get an idea of which company, where are budgets going, because budgets are going up and up and up, while of course, as we all know, competition is very high right now for consumers because there's so many different streaming platforms going after the same consumer. So in that case, we looked into just how different streamers fare and on their original content, and it became very clear that, for example, Apple, of course, is spending a lot of money on their shows, more than some of the others. But on the other hand, unfortunately, the results were clearly not as strong as HBO or some of the more established brands that, yes, they produce also expensive shows, but their shows have either famous IP like House of Dragon, of course, has the whole Game of Thrones IP behind it, and so we can differentiate and see, House of Dragons was actually very successful based on our streaming data, while a lot of the Rings reboot in Amazon was way more expensive, but actually wasn't as successful and wasn't as well regarded. So these are the important insights that we can very clearly outline and show, budget versus outcome. Which company is actually having a good ratio from how much they spend and what the intended result is. And this is kind of what we're doing with constantly measure. We want to predict and then measure. First predict what is likely to work, and then measure what does really work, and so then reinforce and assess how to position yourself strategically in the industry.
So how does this help potentially in the future people who are creating video advertisements? Who want to market a product via video as opposed to just create a filmic type experience?
I mean, right now our focus is mostly around film and forecasting film performance and forecasting now the written scripts, but we see potential. So we already are in talks with marketing agencies, large marketing agencies, advertising agencies about our talent tool, because we do have a talent tool where we assess every talent in the world by its economic value, whether it's by territory, by media, by genre. And so these insights are very interesting for the marketing departments and advertising departments, just to understand which talent to focus on to place a product which might not be film. So that's our first foray into it. But we also see with the predictive forecasting, we could probably help forecast marketing campaigns. With the Callaia, with our script tool, we can help forecast a similar written marketing campaign. So we feel there is potential. We haven't really gotten into great depth on it yet, but we see there's potential and we have initial conversations.
Okay, and let's finish up with Callaia. Who is that for, and what does it do?
Callaia is we call it a script coverage tool, which is basically, this is our first tool, which is not as enterprise level as Cinelytic. It's really for everyone. If you go to Callaia AI, you can literally run a script for $79, or then there are packages where it becomes a bit, the rate goes down on a per script basis. And this is really for anyone. That could be for the single filmmaker that just wants to get feedback on his or her script and see how to improve it, or how to sell it, or how to position it. Or it is also for the large studios, agencies that have just a huge amount of scripts come in, and it just takes too much time to read and analyze all these scripts. And that for them, it's a huge workflow improvement because the script run takes around a minute. And so if you have 100 scripts, this would take you days and weeks normally, or hours, days and weeks. And now it takes you minutes to run 100 scripts, or maybe like an hour and a half. And so it just, depending on where you sit, whether in a large studio streamer or in or if you're a filmmaker, this tool I think can serve all sides by really helping to provide high quality, feedback, analysis, coverage on your script in real time.
So I input the script. What type of information do I get out? Say I am a screenwriter, and I wrote my first script. What do I get back out that tells me what to do with that?
So basically, once you input your script, and within 60 seconds you get a 30-page coverage report that includes the classics: logline, synopsis, and summary. And that sounds like a bit trivial, but even writing a good logline or synopsis can take a long time to condense 90, 100 pages into that. People write days on this sometimes. It creates amazing loglines, synopsis, and summaries. And then the next session is metadata, so it provides you with the genre breakdown by percentage and explains what genres, keywords. It provides the estimated budget, the estimated release strategy this could go out on, rating, and then the next, this is sort of, we call it the metadata section. And then the next sections are creative coverage, and here it really provides you with first a breakdown of all the major characters. So this is very useful, when you pitch the script to actors or discuss the characters, you get a very detailed overview of the main characters. And then we really dive into sort of an industry standard coverage, including detailed notes and grades on key criteria such as premise, originality, dialogue, structure, logic, tone, conflict, pacing, and craft. And the tool gives an overall analysis or overall feedback, a grade of like strong, recommend, consider, or pass. And then for all these sections that I just mentioned, it really creates a in-depth analysis on, for example, premise, originality, of what works and what doesn't. So this was mostly for film professionals, not necessarily for writers, more for people that receive scripts and assess scripts. But the way it developed, and that it's able to give feedback on how to improve the script as well, I see also a use case for writers, I have to say. And so basically what you get out of it is understanding the qualities and the areas of improvement necessary for that script on the creative side. And then the last section is it proposes comps, and it also proposes talent for the major roles, to really give you a guidance on what the tool thinks are very suitable actors to fill these roles. So it gives you a fairly in-depth understanding of it all in a minute.
How many films or film-like projects are completed in a given year, worldwide?
It depends. Completed, it's in the tens of thousands. Released, it's probably around the single thousands. But these days, right, with AVOD and all these various digital ways to release content, it's a very broad field. You can release your film on YouTube, if you have an audience. And I think the important part is that while the distribution landscape changes, right, from theatrical, from DVD to more digital, potentially YouTube eventually, the script and the story is very important from the get-go, and hence that's our main goal. And scripts, it's hundreds of thousands of scripts are out there, and tens of thousands of films are made every year. So there is quite a big market for this.
So looking at a streaming company, that might be watching from their streaming media background, how are they going to use these tools, or is it the filmmakers who come to them with projects?
It's both. So we work with both sides. We work with independent producers. On Cinelytic side, you have to differentiate a little bit, because Cinelytic is a bit more like an enterprise level solution. It's a yearly subscription. It's a bit more involved. So it's for filmmakers, we might do single films here and there, or we have a consulting arm as well. but generally it's more like for companies, it's multi-seat, it's from larger studios or smaller film production companies. Versus Callaia is really, I think, for anyone. I mean, if a filmmaker runs his or her script on Callaia, they can send this analysis with their submission to Netflix or a funding body, and that's how it becomes very helpful. I mean, my wife is a writer herself, and she just ran through a funding body application, government funding body application, and it was just interesting to see that she submitted her script. She got 3 coverages back from that government-run funding body for tax credits and film support, and they were entirely different. And one got hung up on formatting, the other one loved this. So it's like so subjective, right? And I feel this Callaia brings much more objectivity to the process. That yes, everybody, you show a film to 10 different people, you get 10 different opinions. Why? Because we all have a political lean-in, we like certain stories more, and so it's a very subjective thing. And that's always the problem with current coverage, human coverage, that there's a lot of subjectivity in there. With Callaia, it becomes much more objective. So when I saw the funding body reply, I'm like, the funding body should have used our tools. Like similar to Netflix, they should use Callaia for a run, at least one run of their 4 runs, if they do 3 coverages, to have sort of the more objective, non-human analysis and feedback. And then they can have script readers that then maybe also interlay their subjective leanings on certain topics into these stories and say why or not they like them.
Does Callaia give probability of success?
No, we don't do that. So for now, we do just a certain grade. So we grade it from 0 to 5.
Okay, kind of the same thing. I mean, if you get a 0, you...
Yeah, exactly. And then the next step you could do, once you ran a Callaia, you could go on Cinelytic and then take it further and then really do a very in-depth financial forecast on Cinelytic.
Okay. Well, listen, that's all I have. Thank you for taking the time today. Pretty interesting stuff.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was great talking to you.